So we're on Lamed Dalet Amud Beis. By the two dots, 3 lines from the bottom. Zeh Omer Shel Avosi v'zeh Omer Shel Avosi. Amar of Nachman called Alan Gvar. We let them fight it out. Now, this is a very bold statement with the A, not with the O. Very lacking in detail. So Rashbam says, "I'm Shel Avosi v'Shel Avosi." Be besfina, be bekarka, ve'ein edus v'chazaka l'zeh yosim izeh. He says nobody has more than the other one. They're having tinus, and there's no way neither one has an advantage in their tinus. So Nachman says, "Kol da'alim gvar." We let them fight it out. Whoever is able to become a muhsik, he becomes a muhsik, and then he holds on to it. How is this different from the case of two stars that come out on the same day? So the Rashbam explains what is that case of Shnei Shtaros HaYetzim, two stars on the same day. So the Rashbam, Shnei Lefenenu Al Sada Achas Shel Reuven. Two stars, Shimon and Levi come with stars of the karka of Reuven, that Reuven sold them. Shekos of star matana l'Shimon u'shtar matana Levi. There's a star matana that Reuven gave it to Shimon, and a second star matana that Reuven gave it to Levi. U'shneim b'yoyim echad, and they both have the same day. They're both written on the 30th day of July. Neither one has an advantage. Even if it turns out that they were at the different times in the day that they got the matana, the difference of when you get it in the day is irrelevant, since they don't write. There's a Gemara in Subas that says what Yerushalayim is different, but anywhere else it makes no difference what time of the day. You only write the day on the star, and therefore having gotten it earlier in the day is not. It only takes effect at the end of the day in any case. So what time of the day you receive the star is not relevant. So there was a machlokes about this case. Shnei stars the Rav the Gemara says Ushmul Amashuda Dedain. Rav says they split it up. Each one gets half. And Shmuel says Shuda Dedaina. So let's see the Rashbam around 10 lines down in the Rashbam. Shuda Dedaina. Loishia Noita Leva the Yonim. Whoever the heart of the Yonim is, it inclines toward. Shahaya Hanoisin Oyavoya Kroiva Yosef. That they feel that this is who it's more likely that Reuben had intended to give it to. That certainly that's who he decided to give it to. Yinu Zakarka. So the point is, Shuda Dedain is that the Bezdin makes a decision based on outside evidence. There's no, like we said, there is no difference in their stars. There's no way to say one star is more than the other. There's nothing you could bring to prove what that the two stars are actually equal. They're inherently equal. They were both on the same day. So the Bezdin has to go into outside evidence, and they determine who, if they could have gone into the brain of the person who was giving it, into Reuben's brain, who was it that he would have wanted to give it to? So this is the question. So again, we're on Lamed Hey Amin Aleph. We're asking the question, why is it that we say over here, the Gemara started by saying, two people are arguing about a piece of land, and no one has more of a raya to his position. We said on the Kol Alim Gvar, whoever is stronger, whoever grabs onto it, he gets it. Then we said the second case of Shnei Shtaros HaYetzim B'Yayim Echad. They each have a star that was written on the same day. And like we said, like the Rashbam says, there's no difference in what time of the day it was. That doesn't determine who it belongs to. Getting a star earlier in the day is irrelevant because the star really only takes effect at the end of the day. That's when it has effect. So they both really started at the same time. And that we said, instead of saying Kol Da'al Gvar, whoever stronger gets it, we said a machlokes. The Rav says that it is Yachloiku, that they split it, and Shmuel says Shuda Dedaina, that the Bezdin, rather than leaving it up to the litigants to fight it out, Bezdin decides who they believe the original owner intended to give it to. So what's the difference? What's the difference in the two cases of Zay Mishal Avaisai and two stars Hayotzim? So Gemara, there's an obvious difference. Hafim will make Malada Milsa. In the case of the two stars, there is no way to determine who it actually belongs to. There can't be further evidence that will later clarify who it really belongs to. There are two stars, and they did come out on the same day. So it's like a Gordian knot. It can't be determined by bringing another egg. But when two people are arguing about who bought a piece of land, and they both have the same chazaka, and they both have the same. No one has a raya more than the other. You could still bring a raya on it. So, and the intrinsic, the thought behind this is that I think it has to do with what we said about zilusa de beidina. Yachloiku or Shudadain is Bezdin's getting involved. So they only do that in the case where there can't be other evidence that they'll later determine. That's not good for Bezdin that they make a decision and then it has to be unwound. So that's why they only will do it in a case where we don't expect other evidence. But in our original case of two people arguing and neither has brought sufficient evidence to prove his case. So later on, the more evidence comes, they say, in the meantime, fight it out. We're not getting involved because we don't want to be embarrassed by having to undo what we do. If more evidence will come later, maybe that will be enough to take it away from the Muslim. So tomorrow, it's not. How is this different from that which we learned? Hamachluf para b'chamar b'yolda. We had a similar case to this. Ruvain had a par. He had a par. He had a cow, and he traded it for Shimon's donkey. And as we said, I don't remember when we saw this in Kedushin in Bava Metzia, right? The cow is in the barn while this transaction is going on. After they shake hands on the deal, they go out to the barn, and to their surprise, they find that the cow has a calf next to it. Or the shifcha is in the house, and the two Reuben and Shimon make a deal. And they go into the house, they find the shifcha, the female slave, with a baby next to her, an infant next to her that she's just given birth to. And Reuben, who's the seller, says, the cow or the slave gave birth before we concluded the deal, so the infant is mine, or the calf is mine. And Shimon says the opposite. We say yachloiku. Even so, we say yachloiku. So, fact the Gemara, why is that difference? We could theoretically, you could have a Adim that will come in and say that we saw exactly what time we saw you have your mechira. Then we went into the barn and we saw afterwards she gave birth, or vice versa. We saw the cow give birth, and later it was determined. So why are we saying yachleiku, which, like we said, is subject to being overturned if more evidence comes in? Zak the Gemara, and for the Gemara, Hasam la'ai islay drar the maima, the mamayno lahu islay drar the mamayno. Gemara says that over here there's another factor. So it's a machlekes what this din of drar the mamayno is. So the way the Rishonim explain the Rashbam is that in this case where there was a sale of the mother, each person has a connection to this jar of mine is looked at like a connection to this cat. The original owner first owned the mother. We'll stick to the case of the calf and the cow. The original owner owned the cow, so he claims that the calf was born while it was in his rishus, and In the second case, and if the purchaser says that he now certainly owns the mother, and he claims that the calf was given birth while he owned it. So they each have a claim that shows a connection to this calf. So once there's this connection, we say yachloiku. So it's not as clear cut as I said before that they don't want luzilusa de beidina. In a case where it's purely a question, where we have no way of determining whether it's a question of a star matan of who gets it, and we don't know that we don't know which each one of these people is possibly have no connection at all with this money. If the other person's matana came first, this person neither did he own this piece of land, and he didn't own the mother, so to speak, of that land. So he might have nothing to do with it. So in that case, there's not enough pushing the Bezdin to get involved that they'll take the risk of the zilus de beidina. But over here, since each person has to some extent a connection, because each person has either did or now owns the mother, so they have a connection to the situation. So therefore, Bezdin cannot wash their hands of the situation, although the possibility of being overturned is still there. But because of that connection, they still say yachloiku. They don't say kol da'alim gvar. That's Taisus' pshat. But just quickly look at. I'm sorry. That's the Rashbam's pshat as explained by Rishonim. But look at quickly on the top Taisus. He says a different pshat. Just so you should know a different type of drawer de mamayna. So look around Pirish the dal tanose mehacha yesh safek lebezin the haminayu haviv vlad. He says drawer de mamayna means, is there a question without their tinus? This is a question that stands on its own. It's a drawer de mamayna. It's an independent, factual question that doesn't rely on the tinus of the parties to make it into a suffix. V'chei b'shar roy devacha sharach v'hozuk yesh l'stapik and b'shar hozuk aymi aybail aybisela v'chei b'chol mag depligi rabban v'supas aval hacha the Raitaisa stands up over here the zayim shal avoyse shal pitain nisei bo asafik amin and called the alam dvar. If it's purely a question that arises because of the claims of the two parties, that's not a drawer de mamayna. That's a drawer. That's not a suffix that comes because of a inherent question, but rather it comes because of claims, and there they say called al-var, we're not getting involved. So just to say again the Gemara, Hi islay drawer the maimel, who islay drawer Hacha idamar loydamar vidamar loydamar. In our case, if it belongs to this one, it doesn't belong to that one. If it belongs to that one, it doesn't belong to this one. So it's either could be explained the way the Rashbam said that if it belongs to one, the other one has no connection to it, and vice versa. And or as Taisus explained, it's because of their time. Lamar, if we listen to one person's time, then we don't listen to the other person's time. Amin Yadoy. The imba echad min hashok, the hefzik ba. So if we have these two, where we said kol da'alim gvar, we had zeh mishal avayse and zeh mishal avayse, that we paskin like Rav Nachman, they say kol da'alim gvar. If a third party comes, Reuven and Shimon were the two arguers over this property, over the ship, and then Levi comes and takes it and machzik it. We don't take it away from Levi. The Tanya, why is that? The Tanya of here, Gazlan shel Rabim lav shmei Gazlan. Someone who takes from a Rabbin, meaning not from one person, but what it really means is like our particular case, where you have two people and neither of them can prove their bona fides, neither of them can prove that they're the valid owners, they're not considered a Gazlan. So the Rashbam explains this. Tanya of here, Gazlan shel Rabim on the first narrow line. Talking about this case, we can't force him to give up because neither of these people, they're still in limbo. neither of them can say it's mine because we don't. We neither of them has a good enough claim. And since it's stuck, there's no person that can go. We could point to and say this person it really belongs to. It might maybe it doesn't belong to either of them. They only come because they're Zeri Mishal Avaisa, Zeri Mishal Avaisa. But obviously one of them is lying, and we don't know which one. So once we don't know which one, it could be that both of them are lying. That's that's the way the Rashbam says. The Taisa says quickly. He says, even if the two litigants, Reuven and Shimon, wrote that if I don't get it, then you get it. If you don't get it, then I get it. So therefore, it for sure has to belong to one of them. But Rashbam says, even so, since neither of them has a certain taina to impede the third party, they can't take it away from him. Ravashi says this din of Gaza Sharab Laf Shmi Gaza that you're bringing to explain why we don't take it away from a third party, it means something entirely different. Entirely different. La'olam Shmei Gazlan. My loy Shmei Gazlan. Over here, certainly the third party would be a Gazlan, and we take it away from him and we'd let them continue to fight it out amongst themselves. My loy Shmei Gazlan what it means to say is that he's made it worse for himself. This Goslin is in a bad position because he doesn't have who to pay back to. If he wants to get a real kapara, he's going to have to give back to both of them because he doesn't know who to. He can't just say, "Okay, I made a mistake, and now you go back to fighting it out." Because what if the wrong person wins? So then he won't have been yaitze his chiyuv hashava. So in order for him to be yaitze his chiyuv hashava, he has to give both of them the thing that he stole. Gemara says, we said in the Mishnah, I'm sorry?
I understand he has no kapara because he has no one who to return it to. So Rav Chia holds that the one who really loses out is the two litigants and Ravashi holds that
Rav Chia said he doesn't return it at all. Rav Chia said Adarab, since there's no one who could come to you with a taina that is certainly mine, he gets to keep it because it's anyway in a state of kol da'al kvar. Rashi says fakert, you have to return it. Not only do you have to return it, you have to return to both of them if you want to be yaitz yechiv kapara, yechiv hashava.
So shleinitin leishavasa means that if he really wants to get a kapara, he has to return it to both of them.
Yeah, because he doesn't know who to return to. He has to return.
Careful to both.
He disagrees with the original premise of Rav Chia that because it's called al gvar, because it's left open, that therefore he's absolved of the need to return. He does have to return it. He certainly doesn't belong to him. He's not coming with the taina that belongs to him. He's saying I'm just taking it. So he has no taina. So he's taking away from two people who are saying it does belong to me. He's just saying I'm taking it even though it doesn't belong to me. So he's a ganef according to Ravashi. And if he's a ganef, then he has a chiyuv hashava, and he has no way to be miyatzes chiyuv hashava just by placing it amongst them to fight it out. Because fighting it out, I think the point of this Gemara is that fighting it out is not that determines who it belongs to. Like Shuda the Dain and Yachlaiku, we're saying that's a disposition. If someone was to steal after there was a Shuda the Dain or after there was a Yachlaiku, then we would say he just has to return to the person who Beis Din awarded it to, because that's, I'm sure we'd say Hefker, Beis Din, Hefker, and whatever Beis Din decides, that's what it is. But there's no Hefker, Beis Din, Hefker on Kol Da'al Gvar. Kol Da'al Gvar is leaving things sort of in status. They're leaving it open. So therefore, he's not Yotzes Chiyuv Hashava by placing it in Kol Da'al Gvar. It's interesting. I hadn't thought of this before, but it's a very foundational difference between Kol Da'al Gvar and Yachleiku and Shuda Dedaina. Yachleiku and Shuda Dedaina are decisions of the court that probably have behind them the force of Hefker, Beis Din, Hefker, and now it belongs to whoever it's been given to. But Kol Da'al Gvar is the best in washing the hands of it. And they're trying not to make a decision because they're saying they don't want to be overturned. So as long as they haven't made a decision, if someone grabs it, it doesn't then become his in a way that's not reversible. And therefore, you won't be yotzi your chiyav hashava by placing it into a state of kol da'al gvar. Zok gemara weiter. Cheskasa shalom shan miyayim liyayim. We said in the Mishnah, you have to make chazak of 3 years. Amar Bava, idol leiu gufa sana de peri. If let's say, like we've been talking about, Ruvain is coming and saying that Shimon is holding on to his land, and Shimon has cheskes gimel shanim. If Ruvain went and helped Shimon with his harvesting, he helped him. He put a basket of Paris onto his chamar, onto Shimon, who's the muchzik's chamar, havi chazaka. At that point, la'alta havi chazaka. It's a chazaka immediately because Reuven has conceded that Shimon is there legally. He can't say that I want to wait for the 3 years. You have to make a chazaka. If once Reuven has helped him with making use of the land, he's conceding that the land belongs to Shimon. Rav Zvid, but Rav Zvid said, "When Ton va'amal Paris erativ nem." If Reuven says it's true, I helped Shimon in his harvesting, but I had only given this land as a aris to Shimon. He's a sharecropper, so therefore I was helping him with his harvesting. I like to do a Jew a good turn. But I'm not in any way conceding that he owns the land. I'm just saying that he has a right to take the Paris according to our agreement. So that is only a taina if it's within the 3 years that we said la'alta havi chazak. We say there's no la'alta havi chazak. But if the person is there already for 3 years, and now Reuven is saying, he was there for 5 years, but that was all as a sharecropper, and I helped him. I was only helping him as a sharecropper. Then it's not going to. That's not going to explain away his assistance. And he has no taina to say that that was a macha. Zakt Gemara. Amalei Ravashi Rav Kahana. Ravashi asks Kahana. Ilapera achte mahavale lemeven. In fact, the Gemara, if what's gonna be? Let's say Ruvain had taka given this land as an arisus to Shimon for 5 years. How is he going to make a macha? How is he going to be able to prove that the land is his? Shimon is a aris. He'll take his shtar arisus and hide it, and after 3 years, after he's been working on it, he'll say, "Oh look, I lost my shtar and it belongs to me because it was sold to me." You're saying that he can't. He doesn't have a taina that he could say that it was an arisus, but what if it really was an arisus? He has to make a macha. If you wouldn't say this, hani mashkanta de surah. This is what we had back in Bava Metzia. Was a very common way. We find often scattered throughout the Gemara mashkanta de surah, where Ruvain borrowed money from Shimon, and he gave a piece of land that Shimon was going to work for 10 years. And let's say he borrowed $1,000, and each year the land produced $100. He gave the land to Shimon as a mashkin, and Shimon took the payers each year. And the deal was after 10 years, the land returns to Ruvain because each year $100, 10 years he made back his $1,000. So the Kasav Bahu the Mishnim Shnola Olin Tepek Ara Da Kesef, where they wrote at the end of the years of our agreement, this land will go back to the borrower without any money. If the Ruvain did not have the ability to make a macha and say there's no chazaka here, this is just in your hands as a mashkin. And similarly, if we don't have the same thing by us, that someone who has an aris for 10 years, that he could say, he can make a macha and say, this land is only by you by arisis, and he has to do so. So the Gemara, Miskin Rabbanim Midi the Asi Beili De Pseida. Is it possible? The Eloi Temahachi, I think the base is that it would come out that this Mashkan de Surah, Mashkanta de Surah, causes a huge problem. Because if the owner, the original borrower, cannot make a macha and register a protest and say that this is only being held in your hands as a mashkin, or in our case, as an aris, and if that wasn't effective, then every case, the person who's holding on to it could say cheskes gemulshan. You realize when we say that he makes a macha, the effect of the macha is just that the person who's holding it has to hold on to the shtar. Right? That was the chazaka just means at the end of 3 years, if there's no protest, the person who's holding it, the muhsik, can claim that he let the shtar disappear because didn't make a difference. We say he can make a macha. Of course, he can make a macha. The point is the macha has a legal effect that at this point the muhsik cannot claim it's his without producing a shtar. So just like by the mashkanta de surah, obviously the borrower has to be able to make a macha. So too over here, the original owner Ruvain, who gave it as a aris, also has to make a macha.
So why did we bring down Mashkanta de Surah? We were saying that this
because mashkanta de surah is a takanas chacham. Chacham set this up to allow people to be able. If you remember back from Mitzvah, they set this up to avoid ribis on a mashkin where the owner was eating the paris. So the question is, how could the chachamim be misagan something that's so easily manipulated? It makes it easy for the person who's holding it. He'll just say at the end of the 10 years, this lender, he'll say it's mine. I guess it was typical that it would be for more than 3 years. And every time he'll say, I was a muhsik. Oh, and you made a macha, you were telling everyone, oh, I didn't sell it, it's just his mashkin. If we don't respect that macha, if we say that macha does not require the lender to hold on to his shtar, then the chacham made a takana that's easily abused.
Which they want to do.
I'm sorry, yeah. So we wanted to bring a riot from something that the chachamim were misakin, that they wouldn't have made something that's easily abused. And therefore, in our case, which is not a takanas chachamim, it must be that the protest is also recognized, it's respected. Rav Yudam Rav. Yisrael haba machmas akum, a yid who comes into Bezdin and he says, Shimon comes into Bezdin and he says, I bought this land from Tom, and Tom bought it from Reuven. So Tom had it for 3 years, and I had it for 3 years. Hareyu ka'akum. He doesn't have any more rights to this land than the akum does. Ma'akum ein lechazaka ela b'shtar. Just like an akum, there's no din of chazaka on an akum. His only way to prove that it belongs to him is with a shtar. So too, the yid who's coming mikayach the taina that he's saying that it was originally owned from an akum, he has no chazaka ela b'shtar. Let's see. Let's just quickly see the beginning of the Respam. Yisrael abba machzak reyu kakum. Shada hashakol yoidim shahish Yisrael. Everyone knew that this land belonged to Reuven. The Akum was there for 3 years. And the Akum says he got it from Yisrael. And then Shimon came, he bought it from the Akum. And he had also 3 years. Reuven could come. He could take it from the Yisrael. Yisrael lays of little akum the zavim, and he has to go get money from the akum. The Yehuda after anafshai. This is the fault of Shimon who bought it from the akum. You have to get. He has to get the star from the akum. The din chazaka lesle la'akum, because there's no din of chazaka for an akum. An akum cannot hold on to a land for 3 years and use that as his right. This is the part that's interesting, because because we say Stam a Gazlan, Akam is a Gazlan. You saw you're a Limchas. A Yidden are scared to enter into the entire with them. I'm actually in this is precise situation myself. Akam ran into my car, a parked car, and he made up to pay cash, and now he's making tsaras, and I'm Pashut scared. He knows where I live. I'm scared to be tough with him. He'll come and slash my tires. Like we're going to see later on, there's no chazaka by someone who you're scared to start up with. So therefore, the chazaka of an akam is not a chazaka. So we say, back to the Gemara, Amr Yisrael, Habom Akam Hareyu Ka'akam. I'm sorry. Amr Yehuda Marav Yisrael Habom Hareyu Ka'akam Akam En Lechazaka El B'Shtar Yisrael Habom Akam En Lechazaka El B'Shtar. Amr Rava Amr Yisrael. If the Yid said Di Amli Akam Diminach Zavna Mehem, if the guy says that I bought it from Ruvain, then he's believed. Dr. Gemara, what does that mean? Mika Midadilu Akam Amolay Mehemen. Ilam Yisrael Mishmeid Akam Mehemen. What we say, the chazaka of a Akam, where the chazaka always has to be with a taina. So we don't believe in Akam when he says, I bought it. But if the Yisrael comes and says that the Akam said it, that makes it stronger. How could his repeating what the Akam said that we didn't believe in the mouth of the Akam now because the Yid repeats it, that makes it better? Alam Rava, Yom Yisrael, Kami Didi Zavna Akaminach, Zavna Alei Mehem. If the Yid says, no, that I saw that the Yid sold it to the Akam and then I bought it from the Akam, then he's believed. Because he could have said, I bought it from you. I bought it from Reuven directly. So just the same way he could say that, he could say, I saw the guy. Amr of Yehuda, Hi man the Nocket. This is just a repeat of the Gemara that we had seen earlier. Hi man the Nocket, Magluv Tavilav, Am Ezel Xira Ladikla, the Planya Dezavantamine. If Shimon comes and says, I'm taking my harvesting tools and I'm going to harvest the Paris from Reuven, because he sold me the Paris, just the Paris, not the land, he's believed. Mehemet. Although a person will steal land, like we said before, then he has a way of explaining himself. But to say that he's going to go down to land that belongs to someone else and steal it, to say to Paris that he just bought the Paris, that a person doesn't have the chutzpah to do. So we'll stop over here and continue Bez Shem tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.